Thank you. Okay, so today I'd like to show you some insights about the road to the ultimate VR and AR, and how we transform all the industries in the real world, if we can call this world a real world. So first of all, a little bit of background about IEEE. IEEE is the world's largest professional association, and also one of the top SDO standards development organizations. We develop global standards in many areas, including VR and AR. I will mention that a little bit later. The Digital Senses Initiative is one of the IEEE future directions initiatives, which are supposed to cover multidisciplinary directions in the next few years, and especially Digital Senses Initiative, we are being supported by many IEEE societies and councils, and also Standards Association. So this initiative basically is about how we better understand human senses so that we can better enable virtual reality, augmented reality, and human augmentation. So if we need to use a single slogan to describe this initiative, this is re-engineering human senses for better reality. From this perspective, our coverage model includes we need to address human senses from 5 different perspectives: how to capture the signal of these human senses, how to reproduce them, how to synthesize, understand, and respond upon them. And based on these enabling technologies, we can better support virtual reality, augmented reality, and human augmentation. And eventually, we strongly believe that VR and AR and human augmentation have the great potential to fundamentally change the games in many other industries. In addition to technical issues, we also address other non-technical issues such as user acceptance, content richness, security, ethics, things like that. This is our technology map and gap analysis. So this is part of how we figure out the road to the ultimate VR and AR. So if you look at the each row represents one method of processing human senses, and each column represents one type of human senses. And if we have to fill this matrix, you will find that the top left corner would be is much more mature than the rest of this matrix. Like we are now currently much better in terms of how to processing human sights and sight and hearing, which in other words, video and audio. But we are not really good at processing haptics, smell and taste, and other human senses. And even we could do that, we still have to address grand challenges. So this picture shows 2 different interfaces. The green one is between human senses and the outside world, and the red one is between human's mind and human senses. So even we can synthesize all the inputs outside of the human senses. For example, if we want to mimic the scenario, like we go to a bar with your friends, even we can synthesize the taste and the smell of a beer, you could still not be able to synthesize the reaction between your brain and the alcohol. So I believe the ultimate solution has to be placed at the red line, the interface between human mind and the human senses. So from this perspective, we think the ultimate VR experience would include indistinguishable virtual senses, which means we can use the brain-machine interface technologies to synthesize all kinds of human senses so that people would not be able to distinguish if these inputs are from the real world or from a virtual world. And also another important aspect is the so-called self-consistent virtual worlds, which means in order to make a virtual world so real, you have to make it work like every wall need to be able to be broken into blocks, and every pieces of objects. Every piece of objects in that virtual world need to be able to broke down to finer particles. And we see, or we already see some efforts in this direction. For example, the Second Life and Minecraft, users can use building blocks to build more objects in those virtual worlds. And towards this direction, we believe the ultimate goal is to build the self-consistent virtual world so that a virtual universe would be able to look so real so that it's indistinguishable from the real world. And if we are talking about augmented reality, we need to add one more aspect, which is the seamless integration between virtual objects and the real world, so that the virtual objects could interact with the real world. So from this perspective, we could imagine, would these technologies happen in many years? Our answer is no, because we can say that technologies are evolving so fast and faster and faster. So those technologies which were just existing in the science fiction several decades ago might be able to become into reality in just a few years. So this is our prediction. Actually, this is the most important slide in my presentation today. In terms of the three different perspectives on the road to the ultimate VR and AR, first, indistinguishable virtual senses. Today, we already see some efforts in terms of brain-machine interface-based simple actions. But today, all these brain-machine interfaces are read-only, which means they could not input signals back into your brain. But we believe in the next few years, we will see these brain-machine interfaces could be able to use to enable more actions. And also, in the next few years, we will see read and write functions. Also, in terms of the self-consistent virtual worlds, nowadays we have virtual blocks, but later we can see virtual dust and eventually virtual elementary particles. And in terms of the integration between virtual objects and the real world, nowadays we have simple interactions, but later we will see light field enabled seamless appearance of virtual objects in the real world, and eventually we will see complex interactions between virtual objects and the real world. So how to make this happen? The best way to predict the future is to create it. So we have this digital senses initiative to enable multidisciplinary collaborations. We have the industry collections program, the Center of Excellence to facilitate the collaborations between research institutions, technology content and service providers, and enterprise partners and clients. We just announced two physical Center of Excellences in Los Angeles and Shenzhen, respectively. And we're also encouraging industry applications, especially in healthcare, education, retail, home, and more. So healthcare is our #1 priority because healthcare also facilitates the enabling technologies from brain neurosciences back into the VR and AR enabling technologies. And we also do lots of standard development. Now we are hosting 12 standard projects under the IEEE VR and AR working group, which is now already one of the largest task forces in this world to develop VR and AR standards. And we also have several pre-standardization efforts. Tomorrow we will have the plenary meeting of the working group at the Great American Meeting Room 3. So you are welcome to join us. I think, well, that's all. I think I just right on it. Thank you.